All right, we're hitting shoulders and we're going bands only. And the first thing you gotta do is fight the urge to just stand on them and do the Jane Fonda, which is just right up to the side, to the front, just the typical way you would hit bands, because there's a lot of different variations you can do that are just incredible. So even if you have all the equipment in the world at home, you're gonna wanna add this workout in. So if you're ready, let's get after it. Side note, times like these, very important to educate yourself. And the Urban Dictionary has a very different definition of what I thought the Jane Fonda was. So the great thing about bands is you can increase or decrease a level of tension almost instantly. So it pairs perfectly with things like drop sets, partial reps, and other ways to really crank up the intensity. So even though you don't have a ton of equipment at home, you can tear down those muscle fibers and get some growth. So instead of the typical side lateral that most people are gonna do, we can be a little bit more methodical with how we overload certain sections of the movement and do something like 21s. Now obviously we won't do 21s because 7 reps of everything would just be way too easy and we're a little bit too messed up in the head for that. So we'll do 20 reps for each set. So I'm gonna do these unilaterally because I feel like you can hone in on the contraction and your form stays nice and tight. So starting out, you're gonna have very little slack in the line, most amount of tension possible, 20 reps, partial towards the bottom. Then from there, step out a little bit more than you actually would with the normal side lateral and do 20 reps, partials at the top. And then step in just a hair, get a little bit more tension on that. And then your regular side laterals, 20 reps, and they're gonna be burning by that point. So with rear delts, using a wall like this or even the ground, it just creates a different dynamic to it. Instead of just pulling the bands away, now you're pulling away from something or you're flexing into it. For example, if you want to hit some more unilateral work, because again, it's easier to find that great connection, one hand on the wall, and then it's just about finding the right path for your body. And don't be surprised if it's not that typical range of motion you're used to. A lot of times I'll end up in this weird motion that might not look pretty, but I have an incredible connection to. So we can continue to use the wall or even the floor to vary up another rear delt exercise, which is that traditional classic of just pulling the bands apart, but this time it's more to keep that form nice and tight. Because usually what happens after a certain point of pulling them apart, you start to pull towards your body, which is fine. You're still getting that rear delt to contract, but you're not getting the most out of your muscle. Because what you want to have happen is to continue to pull on the path of the most resistance. So you continue to pull away instead of pulling back towards you. This protects you from that. But also it doubles up, because if you've ever done seated hamstring curls where you're actually sitting on your hamstring and contracting it, this does that same type of thing. So as you're coming down, you're flexing against those rear delts at the very top of the movement. One thing to note before you even start, really pinch those shoulder blades together, walk them in to make sure you're just isolating those rear delts. So we're gonna use the chair by sitting on the very edge of it. And because I think there's always a better way to hit those anterior delts, instead of just doing regular front raises, we're gonna open those arms up and then flex them from the side. Now obviously this movement isn't for everybody. So if you need to, just grab a hammer grip, go straight up and do a regular front raise. You're gonna get a great connection to that. But for me, just a better overall feeling is opening up to the side, really opening up that shoulder a ton, and then squeezing past a normal range of motion. And to crank up the intensity even more, we're gonna do a drop set style of set where we have enough tension on there, you might only get a couple partial reps to start out, but then loosen up the tension little by little to where you get in that full exaggerated range of motion. So as always, like, subscribe, hit the notification bell, leave a comment the video you want me to do next, and get after it, get growing. I'll talk to you soon.